Yo, I was young when the storm hit my life. Lost my queen, but the village held me tight. Every tear, every scar, every sleepless night built a woman who knows how to fight. Black girl this, black woman that. Black girl this, black woman that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to season 2 of Black Girl This, Black Woman That, and this is my time with Rasheda, Beyond the Chair. So just a little background of the title, my time with Rasheda, Beyond the Chair. Rasheda is my hairstylist. I've been seeing her for about a year now, a little over a year. And every time I'm sitting in her chair, we're always able to have really good, tangible conversations. Has that always been a thing for you?
Not really, to be honest. Like, in my early career, I was not the friendliest. I remember I used to work in a salon, and there were like 12 of us. It was a lot going on. You have 12 stylists. You got 12 clients at a time, sometimes more. And for me, it was just kind of always a lot. So I went to the store, and I purchased these Beat headphones, the producer headphones, noise cancellation, everything, all the perks. And I would sit in the salon with these beats on my head, doing hair, and just like vibing out on my own, not speaking to the client, not speaking to my coworkers, just kind of like in my own zone. And I remember this older stylist, she came to me. I guess she was trying to talk to me, but I wasn't hearing her because of the music in my ears.
Big old Beat headphones.
Mm-hmm. So she came and she just snatched them off, and she was like, "You do good hair, but you're not going to get far in this industry because you don't talk to people." And I'm like, "What you mean? I talk to people." But then I had to really like take a step back and look around, and everybody else was, talking to their clients. Clients were coming in with their kids, and Silas was like, "Oh, I knew you when you were in your mom's stomach." Like, they had history, they had built relationships, and I had to take a step back and move past myself and learn to have conversation. Learn that it was my job to make my space welcoming, to, just build relationships with clients.
Yeah.
So no.
It wasn't just the doing hair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, bye. Or
Yeah,
what you get hair for.
That was it for me in the beginning, but then I didn't realize it was more than that. But like I said, I was younger. I was a younger stylist, so.
Yeah. And when the older woman came to you and was just like, "Listen, you got to do better," how did you first receive it? Like, what was your first response?
At first, I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I be talking to people, but talking to people and having real conversations are really two different things.
Yeah. So
at first, I was a little taken back, but I got what she was saying.
Yeah.
And I worked on it.
How? Like how?
So. Initially, I had a script. Where, like, a client would come in, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Then I would say something like, "Did someone refer you to me? How did you hear about me?" And some women are more open, so the conversation would kind of keep flowing, and some women weren't. So the ones who would just answer me and stop, I had to go to my script. So then I'm like, "Okay, so have you ever had this done? What's making you want to do this, making you do that?" And then over time, it just kind of became a natural thing.
Yeah. I was definitely one of those clients. It was very short because I've always, getting my hair done, it has always been, natural for me to just go in, even with my AirPods, and just sit in a chair and get it done. But I will definitely say, going into O Salon, the vibe is definitely different, and I love it because coming in, it's very chilled, but you get a sense of like camaraderie. I've said this before, like I don't know what the women are like outside of the salon, but while in the salon, it's such a good vibe, and just like, I wouldn't necessarily say like making friends, but the camaraderie is there. Women talking to each other about God knows what. And I've always loved that because I'm just like, oh, okay, this is different.
Yeah, the salon should be a welcoming space. You're going to spend at least a couple hours.
Yeah.
every 2 weeks,
Not
once
a couple,
month.
Rasheda, like 7 hours in one time.
You don't be spending those 7 hours.
I'll be there for 7 hours. But no, yeah. But it's true because you're there, you're constantly coming. You're there at least twice a month. And like, why not create that space where it's like welcoming and warm? So shout out to O Salon. Hit up Rasheda if you want more information about that. Have you always been like to yourself or?
More so when I was younger, yes. I do have a quietness about me, but it's not a shyness. It's just more so reserved. So when I was younger, I really would keep to myself because I kind of just wasn't interested in having conversations with people outside of what I was interested in. But then as you get older, you learn that, you know, the world is bigger than you and people have things to say. Everybody has a story, and it's good to interact and share stories, your story, their story.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. So yes, before I was a little more reserved into myself, but now I am a lot more open because I've learned the importance of relationships and conversations.
When did that transition happen? From you being reserved and okay within your own space, but then now being so it's like there's more to the world, there's more people out there, more stories to hear, experiences to share.
I would say it definitely started at that moment with the beats and the older lady in the salon.
Nice.
That definitely was a starting point. And then in having conversations and just trying to be more open with clients and meeting people and what's not, it just kind of evolved on its own. I think I learned that you don't have to be scared. I think I was scared in a way, even though I said I wasn't interested. I think it more was also a little bit of scared because, you know, nobody wants to open up and be vulnerable and things like that. But I also had to learn that there's kind of a gray area and not everything has to be taken to heart, because that was kind of my thing. Is like I'm having conversations and I'm taking it so seriously, like, okay, you're saying this and you're saying this. Light conversation is okay,
right? Yeah, I know for me, I was the same growing up. Very, I wouldn't say shy either, because whenever I was given the space to like talk, very intimate though, given the space to talk, then I would talk. But like when there's a bunch of people, you would catch me like somewhere in the corner, listening, not so much speaking. But it was my comfort. It was my comfort space of like not really sharing out loud, because I would have like 1,001 conversations in my head in those moments. And while everyone else is engaging, I'm sitting there engaging with my own thoughts, but like listening to other people. So would you consider where you were like that was your security blanket, like kind of not sharing out loud?
Not necessarily a security blanket, because I don't think that's what it was. Like in my experience, I've had a lot of friends who were just loud, and not loud in a like disruptive way, but they were vocal. They would say what they wanted to say, and they kind of like took over the space. You know, they had big personalities.
Yeah.
And I never considered myself to have this crazy big personality. So I think in those moments, that's what happened. My friends, people around me, they just took over the space, and I was okay with just sitting in the back. I'm chilling. But it wasn't that it was a security thing for me. No.
So I think too, I know for me, transitioning into the space of being open and being okay with hearing my voice being spoken out loud, that takes a lot of work. Mentally, you know, being secure in what you're saying, being secure in your experiences. So what did the work look like for you? Like, what did that process look like for you?
I don't think it necessarily was a process. I think it became the friends that I had that were so outspoken and so big in personality, like they started like falling off in my life. Like I've lost a lot of big personality friends. And then I ended up in a space of your friends aren't taking up the space and being loud anymore, just silence. So it's like okay, so what are you going to say? Because you can't sit in silence forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what that was for me, where it's like, okay, there's nobody else saying anything, so say something.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to the part where you were receptive of the older woman, kind of like encouraging you to build relationships with your clients. How do you look at relationship building with your clients and in your personal life? And I'm asking because you said that with your friends, like they started to kind of like fall out your life, or you started to lose connection with them, and then you took a note and it was just like, well, I have to start speaking up because I don't have my friends, or those friends are no longer here. How do you view relationship building, having those things happen to you professionally and personally?
So professionally, like I said, I just learned the importance of connecting. Because as a hairstylist, we meet all kind of people, all kind of women. I have the women who are high up the corporate ladder. I have the girls who are school teachers. I have the younger girls who are, coming to womanhood. And you learn from everybody, and not just in learning from everybody, but I also want to kind of leave a piece of me with them as well, where it's a interaction. It's not just I'm taking from you, or you're taking from me, but we're both flowing and interchanging and stuff like that. So as far as my personal life, it was more so that now I'm here, there's silence, it's me alone, and it's like, for me, I wanted to elevate.
Yes,
because I do believe that, you're not supposed to stand still. You're supposed to keep moving forward. And if I am in a specific space and I want to move to the next level, I did understand that I had to connect with people on that level. And I didn't necessarily have to wait for them to connect with me. I could connect with them.
Yeah.
So that's what that is. As far as my personal space, that's what I felt like. I tried to not sit and wait for people to come to me, but to just reach out and connect on that level. So
you not necessarily wait for the space to be provided to you, but you take the initiative and create that space. So is that typically how you go on with just like connecting with people?
For the most part, yes. I'm in a space where I'm just being myself. And who I connect with, and who I don't. But in order for people to either connect or don't connect, you have to show people who you are. So instead of me before, I would sit back and, like I said, just wait for people to speak to me.
Yeah.
Now I show up and I'm like, okay, this is who I am. Here I am.
Yeah.
Either you connect with it or you don't.
I know for me, sometimes I always look for, whenever we're connecting with people, I always look for that opportunity to be like transactional. And even with that, we have to sit in with who we are. Like you said, you show up as yourself. So sometimes we have to sit in with who we are and really take note and make note of what it is that we're offering to other people. Is that something that you consider to be just like a priority for you? Is transactional a must, or is it just like, I know what I'm bringing and I'm cool with that, not necessarily the other way around?
It's not necessarily transactional. I show up as who I am, and I'm like, this is what I have to offer, and I don't necessarily expect it back, because that's to me, that's part of like mentorship, right? Where I've been through this, I've passed through this is the information that I have. Here, you can have it and do what you need with it. As far as me being the mentor and maybe having a mentee. And even though I might be a mentor, I'm still a mentee. So sometimes when we do the switch, it's like, I think maybe then it might be a little transactional, but not necessarily.
But then how do you differentiate between the two when you're building relationships with people? Because I feel like, first of all, mentorship, mentee, there's no age limit to it, right? Like you can definitely be a mentor to someone who's older than you, and then vice versa. So how do you differentiate the two? Like, relationships are difficult, but anyway, how do you differentiate the two? How do you know, or how can you tell the difference between when you're in a friendship with someone or when you're serving as a mentor or you're sitting in the seat of a mentee?
I think that's something that comes with time. Like your initial conversations or just initially meeting somebody, you won't necessarily know, but in time of interacting, you realize, okay, I'm pouring out here. Am I getting something back? Or you realize, okay, I'm giving because this person needs this from me, not necessarily that I need something from them.
Yeah.
So I think over time, you kind of figure out which is transactional and which isn't. You know, you figure out the role that you're playing in the situation.
All right, so I want to put a pause right there.
Okay.
Mentorship, friendship. Those are the two differences that we have. When we are sitting in, because those are two broad things that falls under like relationship building outside of like romantic relationships. So we have the friendship and we have mentorship. When we're thinking about friendship, how are you setting the boundaries or how are you setting the expectation? Because I feel at this is something, because of who I am and the type of person that I am, I've caught myself constantly like giving, right? So that's constantly sitting in the seat of mentorship. So how then are you able to just be like, this is the mentorship and I'm okay with that. And then friendships where it's not transactional, you're constantly giving.
That's a big question.
Because relationships are hard. Relationships are very much so unique, and they are they call for us to do a lot of work, both like internally and externally. And so when we're doing the work internally, like we have to sit with ourselves a lot. And one, people aren't. Are you okay with sitting with yourself?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because when a lot of people aren't able to do it because they're not able to face some ugly truths and they're not able to move past it. So that's one. And so when you're not able to sit with yourself, you're not able to just like go beyond that. So just, going back to my first question. I'm sorry, that was my rant.
I was literally gonna say you started off and then you went into something else.
Those are my intrusive thoughts kicking in.
So we're going back to mentorship versus friendship. And
Yeah, we're talking about relationships. So mentorship and friendships are two huge brackets that fall under relationships. How do you differentiate the two?
To me, mentorship is more. It's not an emotional connection. It's not an emotional exchange. It's more information. It's more experiences. If I've had an experience and I'm sharing it with you and vice versa. To me, friendship is a little deeper. We're having emotional exchanges. You're showing up for me in a way that a mentor and mentee might not necessarily show up in.
Yeah.
And I think the difference there is maybe the boundaries, because if I'm a mentor to a mentee, I'm not necessarily going to share my personal problems with them.
Got it.
But if it's my friend, I'm going to share my personal problems with my friend. I might be just looking to vent or looking for a solution, whatever, from my friend. But I wouldn't necessarily do that with my mentee.
Okay. And so, like, expectations, too. Yeah. That was something that I had to learn as well. Just, like, expectations when it comes down to friendships and that mentorship. The expectations are completely different. Whereas I'm not expecting anything from this but to support someone else. But like in friendships, we're expecting to support each other in whatever it is that we need support in. Did you have mentors growing up, or did mentors play any role in who you are today?
I wouldn't necessarily say I had mentors growing up as like in my childhood, because like we said previously, for me, mentorship isn't an emotional connection. It's like, I'm trying to elevate to a certain place. You have information, we're sharing information and what's not. So as a child, in childhood, not necessarily, but in my career, growing from a younger stylist to where I am now, I definitely did have mentors. The lady that I work with right now, Heather, she's she's more than a mentor. Like, we've grown with that. It's a friendship, and that's crazy because you can actually transition from mentor to friendship.
Happy you said that.
Yeah, so I did have mentors. Heather is a big role as far as a mentor. She's taught me a lot. Yeah, not just professionally, but personally. We have branched from, what is that, mentor, mentee, younger stylists to senior stylists to, we're friends. We have conversations outside of just professional settings.
Yeah. So I think it takes some realization with knowing that people need help, and with knowing, let me not say people, with knowing that you need help or like you need guidance. Would you, if you were able to go back into your youth, would you think like it would have been beneficial to have mentors? Or were you good with just like, nah, I'm Rasheda and...
I think I had people I looked up to, but I didn't necessarily see them as mentors. Like, my parents played a big role in who I am today. Maybe then I wasn't looking at it as mentorship. I'm looking at it as like, your parents.
Yeah.
But would it have been beneficial? I don't want to say yes, because that sounds like, oh, she...
And I'm asking that because, right, like when we're sitting in our ugly truths, when we're thinking about things that we have to work on, we don't know, but a lot of it stems from like our early childhood. And so now that we're older and we have people who are mentors in our lives and people that we can learn from intentionally, it's like, dang, if I would have had this when I was about 10 years old, then I would have been a little better off and not having to deal with it when I'm 75. So it's like...
I get what you're saying, but for me, I always see myself in a different place to maybe a lot of other people. Like, I didn't have a crazy childhood, or I didn't have a lot of the traumatic things that some people might have had with them. Like, I had a really good childhood. My parents instilled the values. Like, my mom's a pastor, so we were in church. We were in church Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Monday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. But Friday. A lot of the values and stuff that I had instilled in me came from church, came from that. So I didn't feel like I had a need to be better than
where you were.
Yes, because I had a good childhood. I didn't have some of the setbacks that some people had.
So with that, how do you intentionally connect with people?
So initially, my friendships haven't been where it's like I go to connect with people. The people that I do consider to be my friends, it's been a place of I show up as who I am. I joke a lot. I laugh a lot. And people just want to be in my space. Like,
yes.
And I think it's because I just show up as me. There's no ill intentions. There's nothing behind it. I'm just who I am. And I even had a friend where she said to me, when I met you, I knew you was going to be my friend. Like, I was going to be your friend. And I was like, wait, what?
And y'all are friends?
We're friends. It's been a long time. But the funny thing is, if she didn't push to kind of be my friend, we probably wouldn't have been friends.
Okay.
Because I can be very, like, airy.
What do you mean by airy?
Like, I'm literally in my own bubble a lot.
I've come from a big family. I have a lot of siblings. I'm not going to give a number because I might miss a person. So I have a huge family. I have a lot of siblings. And you would have thought someone who comes from a big family is okay with having so many people around or being around a lot of people. Negative. For me, I prefer a very tight, intentional circle that's not overwhelming. So you do have a pretty dope personality. You're all right. Quite all right. So how so how do you balance the two? So you have clients who are like the person that you were speaking of prior to was a client of yours, or okay. So you have clients who come in sitting in your chair, and you're you're having these conversations with, but then you also have like your circle of friends. How do you balance the two?
So initially, I used to separate my personal and my professional because I felt like I had to. Because for me, like you said, my friend circle is very close, and I don't consider everybody to be my friend.
Yeah.
So in my professional side, I tried to keep it very professional, very, I wouldn't be cracking jokes. I wouldn't be.
No jokes?
I'm speaking about in the beginning, right? No, in the beginning, I would try to keep it professional because, we got like raw reviews and they'll be on there like, oh, I went to this stylist and this happened and that happened. So I tried to keep it very professional, okay, what are you getting done? Here's this, here's that. But I also had to learn that I don't have to give all of me to my clients. And that was what I was trying to avoid as far as my personal and my professional.
Yeah.
My friends know everything. They know the funny, they know nothing, I take nothing seriously. But then I was presenting to my clients this very rigid kind of persona. And I had to find a balance of, you can joke and you can be not as serious, but still be professional.
Yeah.
So I had to that became a thing. I had to learn, I had to evolve into that. I had to figure out the gray area.
Okay. Yeah. So that's professionally, right? You figuring out the gray area, knowing that it's okay to kiki and haha with your clients. That's quite all right. What about in you finding the balance of the gray area at work? How do you find a balance of knowing when to step back and when to pull back, even in your personal relationships? And is that an important thing for you, knowing when to kind of just like separate yourself?
From my friends?
Yeah.
I don't separate myself from my friends.
Why?
Because those are my friends. And I take friendship very seriously.
Yes.
It's not everybody's my friend. And I probably can count, I think I got like 3 friends or people that I could really consider to be my people. Before I would have 3 friends and that was it. I would have 3 friends and then I have clients. But now I have 3 friends, I have clients, and then I have the in-between.
Okay.
That don't sound too good, but
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I get it. It's like
so wait. I have the in-between who might transition into friends. No, because for me, you have to kind of earn friendship.
Yes.
We're not like, okay, so I had a friend, she was younger than me, and we had hit a point where I think she was turning 30, and she was stressing about, she was losing friends and all this stuff. And I remember I said to her, when we're younger, we have friends because why? We are in the same math class in college. We're in the same, your mom and her mom was friends, so you guys were friends. You grew up together, but there's no real depth in your friendship.
Yeah, very
as
surface.
As you get older, your friendships should be deeper. Even though you might grow up together, it should transition to something just a little deeper than we liked the same things. So in that sense, I take my friendships very seriously. I don't consider everybody to be my friend, because you have to not necessarily earn, but we go through trial and errors. We go through stuff. We figure out stuff. We come out on top. Like, that's just what that is. So I did learn my in-betweens.
Yeah.
I need to find a different thing to say for in-betweens.
I mean, yep. No, I get it. I just hope,
The gray area.
The gray area. Yes.
You're more than a client, but you're not necessarily a friend.
Yeah.
So
you categorize do you categorize your friends? So do you have specific friends? And I'll answer that first. Do you categorize your friends? Like, do you have specific friends that you go to for different things, or are all your friends able to just like? Are you able to count on all your friends for the same thing? I'm not. Like, I have friends for different things. Like, if I'm going through something, I have a friend that I can call and be like, listen. But I can't call that other person because their experience might have been a little different. Do you?
Yeah, I have friends I go to different friends for different things, but also I have different friends for different reasons.
Yeah.
Meaning I appreciate different things in each of my friends.
That was a nice way of putting it, because the way I said it wasn't nice. But that's what I meant. That's exactly what I appreciate you guys for different. I appreciate you guys for different things, and thank you for your support.
Yes.
I had to put that in here. I'm making a phone call. You appreciate your friends for different things.
Yeah, my friends are in different areas of life, right? Like, I have one friend, she's older, she's been married for a long time. I have another friend, she's single. And even in age-wise, my friends are different ages. So we're not always going through and experiencing the same things at the same times. So something that I might be experiencing now, that one of my other girlfriends, she might not be experiencing that, but my other girlfriend, she experienced it already. I would have certain conversations with her about it.
All right, so you're very stern and very firm in who you are as a person. Has this always been a thing for you?
It has, but then it's also evolved. Because a lot of who I am, I think I've always been, as far as a kid, like, I've always been sure of myself. I've always been considered a leader. Like, I have in my report cards, that was the one thing they would write on there, like, Rasheda's a leader. Rasheda does what Rasheda wants to do. Rasheda don't listen.
Yeah.
And I'm still like that, but I'm also evolved past just the thinking about me part. I've evolved where sometimes my actions, I have to pause and I'm like, okay, this is what I want, this is who I am, but how is this going to affect A, affect B,
Yeah. So what does that look like, you sitting in who you know Rasheda to be and kind of realizing that you have to shift that a little bit and make some changes?
Yeah, it's compromise. Sometimes what we feel is right or what we feel is necessary is not necessarily right or necessary. And I had to learn that just because this is what I want doesn't mean it's right, and what I want might affect Bernie.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to take into consideration that, okay, maybe I don't need to do that. Because if it's going to affect Bernie in this way, I might not necessarily have to do that.
Yeah. How do you stay grounded in all that you just described? Because that in itself, I can let you know this right now. It doesn't matter how you were raised and how you were brought up as a child or what your childhood looked like. life happens to everyone, and so we experience things that can shift us from the breakdown of relationships, from people walking out of our lives, from no longer having our loved ones in our lives. How do you stay grounded in just being who you are?
Because I want to go to heaven. And I know that
That was good.
no, I know that that's just like plain and cut dry. But to expand on that, we're responsible for everything we do, everything we say, everything we think. So before I do things, not always before I say things, but I try to have that thought in my mind. I have to be accountable for everything that I do. So I try not to do things that I'll pay for.
Nice. But help me. I need you to help me, right? Because, baby, listen, like, how do you, because that's a process in itself, like you sitting in and what does that look like for Rasheda?
I think it's been it's a journey. Like, I didn't just get to this because like everybody else, I've had things happen, situations, you got your heart broken, you want to be revengeful, you want to do things, you want to pay people back.
Yes, ma'am. Honesty is the best policy.
No, it is. We're human beings. But like I said, when I have to think about, Rasheda, you want to go to heaven. So if you do this, you're not going to go to heaven. Like I literally sit and have the thought in my mind of, okay, you pass, you're up there, and it's like, it's you and God. And God is like, remember when this happened and then you did this? Or you had this thought and you acted on it. And now I'm there like, damn, I did do that. And that's the one thing that's preventing me from going to heaven.
I hear you.
So I try to like really pause and be like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's just been where it becomes kind of natural to me. I'm not going to say we have emotions. Sometimes you're in your feelings in the instant, in the moment. But I also always try to draw back and even if I have to apologize for it to God, in my prayer, whatever, like, we're human beings. We're going to have thoughts. We're going to have feelings. But you have to take accountability for your actions.
Yeah. And then that goes back to us. You and I had the conversation about sitting in solitude and or isolation, and like the two, the benefits of the two. So what I'm hearing you say is just like you're more so leaning towards the solitude because in solitude there's growth, in solitude there's acknowledgement. But so often we want to run to the isolation because there we find comfort in being a victim. There we find comfort with like blaming and not necessarily taking accountability. And so what was your turning point for you realizing, like, nah, I want to get into heaven? Because like you said, we're all human and we want to get people back. We want to get a lick back for sure. So how did you get to that point of like, nah, I want to make it into heaven, so we're not doing this?
I can't think of a specific moment, but like I said, I was raised in church. So even though I might not have been paying all the attention, some things still stick. And like I said, we are responsible for ourselves, right? Like sometimes we're a victim by default, meaning sometimes we're hurt because of not necessarily someone's intention, like they weren't intentionally trying to hurt you, but their intention was to make themselves feel good, and your hurt was kind of like the byproduct of that.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes we have to come out of victim mode, and I knew I had to come out of victim mode as well. And I just came to that realization. Sometimes the things that happened wasn't that the person was intentionally trying to hurt Rashida or intentionally trying to do this or do that. Sometimes they were just doing what felt good for them. And then, your feelings are hurt on the side.
Yeah.
So, in understanding that, that's why I think it's a little easier for me to be like, you can't do that. You can't intentionally hurt somebody because they hurt you kind of like not by accident, but
not realizing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're going to be held, I think, more accountable for that
because
than the person that hurt you by default.
Yeah. Yeah. In a conversation that we were having, you had mentioned, because another thing that we have in common is how personal you take your friendships. And even in how personal you take your friendships and your relationships, you don't take it personal. You remember that?
Yes. That's kind of back to just what I said. Sometimes you have to sit and not play victim game, get out of your feelings of the situation. Okay, you're hurt.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sometimes you're hurt, but you really sometimes have to sit and think, is it intentional? Like, intentions is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Was this person intentionally trying to do this to me? Because that is different. So like I said, you being caught up as a bystander in something.
And then after that, it's like, that's what you're sitting in by yourself. And do you think sometimes it calls for you to actually like speak on it, or just like personally deal with it and then move forward?
Usually at that point, it's that I'm dealing with it and moving forward. Because a lot of times in the moment of things, I'm not thinking that I'm being, it happened as that I was a bystander and got, that. But a lot of times it's after the fact. I'm sitting in it, I'm thinking about it, and you just got to take your feelings out of it.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do all the time, though. It's not.
Yeah, especially if you're like a person who take things or take people personally. I think although we take people personally, and I've shared this before, at the age that I am now, I'm still learning how to not take people and things personally, because when we take them personally, that's when we end up getting personally hurt.
And it's a lot to carry. Because if you meet 5 people and you think all 5 of them did something to you and you're holding on to it, you're carrying that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta, you know what, it's whatever. And you just, there's a freedom in letting that go.
Ooh, baby. Yeah. Freedom in letting it go. No, seriously. I mean, I feel like I have, I don't want to say the best of both worlds because it's not, but you have both experience in holding on to it, and then also the feeling of knowing to let it go. And there's definitely freedom in letting it go, because it's like you're holding on to it for what? And it's like it's taking a toll on you, not them. They're probably not even thinking about it, but it's taking a toll on you. And so you need to do what you need to do to let it go.
Yeah, because as believers, like I cannot quote no Bible verses, but I know it's in there somewhere where you got to cast your stuff on God.
Yeah.
Like He's gonna take care of it. He's gonna make it what it's supposed to be.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're not supposed to carry
your cares upon Him. Yes, for sure. He directs us to do that. So, Mr. Gray. Yeah, I think we could end literally with that.